Okay, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to get right to it. My name is Lolita Goldring, and you are viewing our ebook. So I'm just going to dive right into the principles that I think this will change your life forever, and this could be also in any realm. So it's professional and personal. These principles you can apply, particularly this one. This one is to me the be and end all of everything. And I am completely 100% biased. So all of you helping professionals out there, if you have a different school of thought, my whole entire platform is an eclectic one. And so it's basically giving you a full understanding of several things that worked for me that I could pull from in order to provide for the needs of others. And it really is the best of, so that you will save time and save money, because this is all also very affordable. Now, excuse me while I take this. This is one of my self-care regiments, by the way. On the hour, every hour, 5 of, I take a moment and inhale very positive thoughts, and then exhale whatever it is that I'm releasing. So right now this is my first take, so I'm pretty nervous, so I'm just going to release that. Maybe one day you all will see these takes, as I've been encouraged to provide for people, including on this platform that I'm recording on right now. So yeah, today, to get started, I'm going to share with you briefly, this is the golden nugget, 3 of Carl Rogers. And in our full training, I describe all the theorists and all of their main principles so that you have a nice platform from which to begin or add on to your skills already. And you'll have an aha moment when you go through some of these, because there are pieces that happened for me that was like, oh, that's how that person is able to kind of, my supervisors, and I emulate them, do this or that. So these are 3 principles that Carl Rogers says are essential for anybody who is providing services for another. And of these 6 principles, he's broken them out based on who is the person who is doing the action, or is the person who this is on your watch. It's your responsibility to take care of. So there are 6 principles, and I'm going to go over for you 3 that are absolutely essential and crucial, that without them we would not be able to help people, according to Carl Rogers. And these essential features that I'm focusing on here are essential features that we as service providers need to have, and operating and working well and continuing to practice, and I'll give you tips for that as well. So these are really crucial. So if you don't have anything else from me, if you don't take any of the other courses, or you don't have any other freebies, or you decide to travel for a year and you're going to be on a mountain somewhere, and you have nothing else from me, please make sure that you listen to these principles, because these are the golden nuggets. So whatever else you're doing, it really won't matter unless you have these principles. And I really stand by that. So it's very hardcore recognition of these principles, but they're very dear to me, and they work. And you will see after you participate in this training, once you practice in your own life, or if you're old hat and you've forgotten about them, you will also, you'll remember this. Maybe not in the way that I'm saying it, but you will remember it. All right, so excited you're here. Let's go. Core conditions that caregivers or social service providers or people in the helping profession must have in order for a person to receive the care that they deserve and should have, and where they're given with dignity these services. So according to Carl Rogers, there are 6 of these conditions that we talked about to provide services to engage in a client-focused or client-centered focused. You may have heard of that. Client-centered approach is another way. People have also coined this as person-centered approach, meaning it's all about the other person, it's not about you. but his language was client-centered focus. So there are 6 conditions, and I'm going to talk about 3 of them. 3 essential conditions that must be met in order to achieve person-centered, client-focused, or person-centered care. The 3 essentials outlined here are excerpts from my condensed work here, and I'm featuring the module that this will be coming from is called Caregiving with Confidence, and it includes a bunch of things that we'll talk about a little bit more later on. It also features tips to unleash your creativity as it relates to the journey that we'll be undergoing if you want to embark on some of the creative workshops that I also provide, and these are for self-care. So the whole entire package and platform is a portal for self-care. I believe that knowledge is a vehicle for which people can feel better, more confident, have more points of navigation, and also help themselves in situations and others with a level platform, so that sometimes information can be used as a weapon, and so that's never really fun. So I put all of this together so that people have information in a much more affordable way. I went to Columbia Teachers College, and so it can be expensive. So I'm providing this platform so it's a little bit more affordable and people can still have the same information, or some of the same information, because I am, again, including 37 years of experience. So yeah, pay attention to other things, because I have your email address, so you'll be able to get all the other freebies. So I just wanted to share a couple of the quotes that Carl Rogers has shared with us, so that you get an understanding of where his mind was. So I'm going to read to you these 3. This is Carl Rogers speaking now. The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. So it's very, very curious. It's a very curious thing. I mean, we're always trying to work on stuff, right? Well, part of that, from his point of view, is, well, you've got to already be kind and loving and accepting of yourself in order to accept that you are able to change even. So you have to accept yourself as you are, just as you are. So it's kind of give yourself some of the tools that he's saying that we need to be giving to other people, which is very wonderful and a paradox. Second quote is, the good life is a process, not a state of being. It is a direction, not a destination. So I love this, because process, it gives us space, and it gives us time, and it gives us comfort in knowing that we can live in this moment, and we don't have to be so fast and so quick to hurry up and get to it, because usually we're missing the boat somewhere. We're going to miss the boat if we train our minds in that way. So one of the things that we said, that we said in graduate school often, was process, not content. So it's not the data, it is the process. Process, not content. So it's not what is going on, it's the process by which these things are interrelated and happening, and how we move through those things. That is the real key. So from this day forward, just be thinking, and these are not the core conditions, by the way. These are just quotes, and I'm elaborating. Process, not content. So that we give ourselves the space, and we're able to hold space. We'll talk more about this later. We're able to hold space in this process. So knowing that things, cause and effect. There are things that affect and, move through. There's flow. There's yin and yang, right? So remember that all that we are in is a part of a process. So when you can acknowledge that, good, bad, or the ugly, we actually can embrace that we are in a good life, even if terrible things are happening. We're able to wake up, right? So this is a way of also breathing into the mindset of Carl Rogers. The third quote is, the only person who is educated, according to Carl Rogers, is the one who has learned how to learn and change. Right? So the only one who has learned is someone who has learned how to change. Right? So I had some of the best supervisors, and one of the keys and one of the ways that they always presented was looking at the options and looking at ways that we could identify a particular thing about a particular situation and then come out with a solution or an outcome that would be beneficial to the person. And if those of you who are systemic and believe in systems, you hear what I'm doing. So things are interrelated. Okay, so one of the things that happens with a new person who's in the helping profession is that they are so nervous and they're so paralyzed that they don't know enough, that they kind of bypass themselves and then behave in ways that, because of the nervousness, bypass themselves, and they are not as fully accepting, and so thereby can be pretty frozen. And I've seen that, and it's the worst place for a person to be in, because they keep feeling like they're going to not do something right, or did they do something right? And so they're constantly in this space of questioning. So when you're in the middle of this and you're with other people and you are a service provider, the best thing to do is to put on your Carl Rogers hat and just kind of give yourself space and understand that process is life. The good life is made up of process and pieces. Things are interrelated. You're not alone, and you're human, so you do have things to learn, hopefully, because you know what? This is the number one thing about being human, is we always want to be learning and moving and changing, and we're not static, right? Our energy is moving all the time. So I started this part of the third quote talking about some of my supervisors who were just super instrumental. I also want to insert this, that I learned from folks that did not have that capacity either. So I also learned what that looked like to not have the capacity, and I'm guilty as well, so that there are times when, depending on the stimuli, you're going to be in a different space than you would be if you were able to, be in the Carl Rogers mode all the time, right? So that being said, allow yourself the freedom to know that you too, just as you're expecting others to learn and adapt and make changes, you have that capacity as well. And not only do we have that capacity, but as people who are in the service industry, we want to showcase that as much as possible. Not really showcase, that's the wrong word. We want to live and embody in that space. Okay, so these are all written in your free ebook as well. So I won't elaborate any further. I will keep mindful of the time. So let's get on to those three essential conditions, the ones that are core. That was my little prelude. So culture is moving and nonlinear, and those that can adapt and change are the ones considered learned. Of 6 conditions, Carl Rogers affirms 3 essential conditions between caregiver and client that are necessary for progress to occur and necessary for progress to work. I want to make sure I'm reading this right, because this is a quote, client that are necessary for progress to occur and necessary for progress to work. Yes. The first is congruence, or in other words, genuineness. The second is having unconditional positive regard, and I'm going to be explaining these, so you'll have time to write them down, and they're also in the book. And the third is having empathetic understanding. Very good. So I've covered somewhat lots of this already. Okay. So let's break them down now. Item 1, essential item number 1, congruence or genuineness. So have you noticed at all that if you find that I'm just, and I'm going to use myself as an example because it's important to show you, illustrating to you what some of these concepts can look like. So as I'm speaking to you, you can tell when I'm kind of reading. You can tell when I'm speaking directly to you about a thing because it's what I want to say to you and it's important. And there's a different element, there's a different quality of that, what that sounds like, right? So the quality of what that sounds like is what it is that he's talking about at this point, right? And it is about authenticity. It's about really who you are, okay? And so you want to bring yourself forward when you're in the presence of someone that you're working with. You want to bring who you are forward. And this is extremely, extremely, extremely important. And the reason it's so important, a lot of you are already going to know this, and the reason I also wanted to provide these trainings is that sometimes there is a framework or a frame for which one might feel that they need to express themselves in or at or be, right? There's definitely a framework. So we have these parameters in every walk of life, everything that we do, there are parameters. So we want to keep those parameters in check. But it doesn't mean leaving yourself, over someplace else. And I think that sometimes there's confusion about what that might look like. And so a lot in our field is, leave your baggage at the door. And that's true. You want to leave your baggage at the door. And there's a way to do this. And the magic of the way to do this is in what we're talking about right now, right? So it's being who you really are. And one of the things when I worked in teams and building teams, and it was just the most heartbreaking thing that I saw. There were a few heartbreaking things, but this was one of them. That I would see a person who with a big heart, wanting to do the best that they could, provide the best services that they could for people, but they, the way that they interacted with the person that they were serving is very different from the way that they were interacting with everyone else on the planet. And so it was not a comfortable situation for that person. So that person, to me, that person is in pain and they are suffering and they're in a way not even breathing and being their full authentic self. And that's because I think people are afraid to make mistakes and they're afraid of doing the wrong thing. So people turn into this sort of like neutral, muted kind of, you'll hear the language, you may hear yourself in that space where you're just kind of repeating the same thing that the person is saying back to you, or your heart is feeling like, I want to do more, but I'm not sure how to. So Carl Rogers tells us to bring our full self, as much as possible, our full self together. And part of this training will help you to understand the differences between bringing your full self and being there for the person. And the key is your focus is on the other person. So let's just let's move through some of the information that's written here in your ebook. So yes, there is a time and a place for everything, and we're going to get to this more later. Though reaching this level of comfort being yourself is harder than it seems. This happens usually when a person is so fearful of making a mistake, becoming rigid in their responses, sometimes frozen in place, and they find themselves following a strict adherence to rules either they created or someone created for them, albeit the culture of the organization. a supervisor, a manager, or it could be imposed by the very person themselves that they think that this is what they must be doing. The goals in the caregiver's mind here is don't make a mistake, and that MO dictates the rest of the behavior. And so they're kind of minimizing themselves, and they're also not really minimizing the person. They don't know that they are, but it's very hard to listen and be present with the person if you're constantly fearful that you're going to make a mistake. So paralyzing fear holds the person captive, so responses are staged, they're planned, and as a consequence to it all, they are limiting. Limiting for the person providing the service, limiting for the person receiving their service, and surely limiting for the organization who is responsible for providing a certain level of care and providing a certain type of service. So, so this is really, really key. This is the first item, the first essential factor, and that is congruence. Congruence. Being together with your genuineness. And we'll talk, this is in the deeper training, but when we are not as much of ourselves, that is when cognitive dissonance occurs, and that's a conflict. And that means that people are maybe walking around and they're bumping against each other because they're not feeling like they can be as genuine. So I'm here to help you see to exhale and actually celebrate the you that is you, because that is what makes you you. That is what got you the job. That is what got you into doing what it is that you want to do. You started out for a reason, and so all of that is important. Now, how we do that and help the people that we are working with, that's what all this is about. Okay, so let's go to the essential condition number 2. Well, I actually have some more to say about this. Let me just tell you what it is that's written here, because this is important too. So we've all been there and caught ourselves in these traps. Yes, and I am talking from experience too, so no difference. The sooner you realize that you are human, that the person you're working with is human, and is just as capable and as savvy as you are, you will liberate yourself to authenticity every single time. So part of what gets people tripped up in this a little bit, and this is society's conditioning and sort of roles and what happens, and there's a lot of pressure for this to occur. People are trained that, and this comes from old thinking, the decade of the disease, which is also part of my training, where the doctor had the white coat and they knew all the answers, and this is where this thing comes from. And so we've been plagued with this throughout, and in service provision, it's really can be harmful, because you are, depending on who you're working with, you're then putting this framework onto that person, when you yourself may not come from that framework, but you're then acting in this framework. So part of what I am training is that all of these areas can be combined, and that depending on the person and depending on who you are, you can, there's a toolkit for you where you can pull from different things, and different things will work for different people. So there's all kinds of factors and demographics that will make a difference. Be free and trust yourself. You are in this helping space for a very, very, very good reason. And whether you're new and have a lot to learn, or you are old hat and you need reminders, pat yourself on the back. Our brains are pretty elastic. So when we adjust, when we need to adjust, we will. We know how to do that. And when we need to, we can do it on a dime. We could do that. So our brains, our magnificent brains, a lot of the other parts of the trainings are what we are capable of, and it's about that we are able as humans to take in information, learn, change, adapt, and alter our behavior. So whatever is going on or has been going on today, after you hear this information, kind of give yourself a break, and you give yourself a knowledge that you have some extra tools to work with in order to be present with the person that you're with. And this is for a client. That's why I said this is professional and personal, because this is for a client. This is for your personal relationships, your friendships. It's, and we'll get into this in the bigger trainings, but there's a lot that goes into, what that means to be present. Breathe, shift gears, shake out your fears, reach the sky, wiggle your arms to liberate yourself, and then go out and meet everybody with a smile. All the people that you're going to be talking with tomorrow, you're going to greet them with a smile. And we're going to get to the second essential condition next. Okay? Let me take a break here and see how we're doing. Hold on 1 second. I'll be with you in a second.